A very good evening all. I'm Aditi Lama with the Tuesday night edition of South Asian News. Welcome to Vision of Asia, voice of our community. We are coming to you from our studio in New York City. Here's what's happening tonight in the coronavirus pandemic. We are looking at more than 29 million cases of COVID-19 in the world with at least 930,000 deaths. Here in the United States, we have surpassed 6.5 million cases and more than 195,000 deaths of the coronavirus. Eyes are on the much anticipated vaccine for COVID-19, and on that, Pfizer Inc. today said that the participants were showing mild to moderate effects when given either the company's experimental coronavirus vaccine or a placebo in the ongoing late-stage study. The company has enrolled more than 29,000 people in its 44,000 trial to test the COVID-19 vaccine it is developing with its German partner BioNTech. While this is happening, dozens of wildfires have burned across some 4.5 million acres in California, Oregon, and Washington state, ravaging small towns, destroying thousands of homes, and killing at least 36 of people. Our hearts go out for all and for the safety of all being affected by these wildfires. And Sally, a slow-moving, so far Category 1 hurricane, is rumbling towards U.S. Gulf Coast, threatening historic floods in Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida coast. Here's also to the safety of all the residents there. And on politics and the economy, with U.S. presidential and congressional elections less than 2 months away, Democrats and Republicans have been unable to agree on a fifth coronavirus bill, having approved more than $3 trillion worth of measures earlier this year. What do you think should happen with this stimulus bill, and what has been your experience with the economic ramifications of COVID-19? Write to us with your comments on events@itvgold.com, and we continue to urge all that are participating in nationwide demonstrations for racial justice and the Black Lives Matter movement to also write to us with their thoughts regarding racism and systemic oppression of minorities. Much on this tonight, along with coronavirus medical updates and more. Let's begin the South Asian news segment by looking at the headlines for the evening. Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Kamal Kalsi addresses coronavirus pandemic developments and vaccine New Jersey. Black Lives Matter, Greater New York demands racial justice and equality, featuring Chivona Newsome and Chivona Newsome, ITV Gold Studio. Edison Township pays tribute to 9/11 victims on 19th anniversary at the Papaianni Park 9/11 Memorial Fountain, New Jersey. It's time for a short break with us on Vision of Asia South Asian News segment. We'll be right back. And welcome back. I'm Aditi Lama, and this is Vision of Asia, Tuesday night episode of South Asian News. Looking at the coronavirus pandemic's updates, measures, and the much-anticipated vaccine, the U.S. trial for AstraZeneca is pending on the FDA and safety panel investigations after a potential impact in one volunteer was reported and paused this trial. Today, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration said that it is working to figure out if there was a significant safety issue or not. While this is happening, colleges across the nation are struggling with the spread of the novel virus from in-person to online learning. On that, University of Arizona is urging its students to shelter in place until the end of month. The New York University has placed an entire dorm on quarantine following several reported cases. Also, in the nation's largest school districts, more than 40% of its students in New York City public schools have requested for remote learning operations. So should students be returning back to campuses or schools, and how do we truly protect ourselves? We have another segment of our conversation with Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Kamal Kalsi. Here's what Lieutenant Colonel Kamal Kalsi had to say. And how much is the flu season that obviously is approaching, and we want to raise awareness about getting the flu shot? How much of that do you see impacting COVID-19 here?
We've had case reports of people actually being co-infected with both the flu and coronavirus.
Oh, wow.
So, and we also know that if you have co-infection, that those people actually get much sicker. So that's why for us as doctors, we want to try to get as many flu vaccines out there as possible. And we're encouraging people to come in now and get their flu vaccine. It takes typically 1 to 2 weeks to kick in. So that'll, you figure you get it now, it'll kick in about 2 weeks. And hopefully that'll give you some level of immunity for about 4, maybe 5 months.
Oh, wow. And do you recommend, especially that at high-risk patients, and we have a lot of them in the South Asian population, that they go ahead and get their flu shot?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and now is the right time. Don't wait until somebody in your family gets sick or one of your friends gets sick. Just try to come in now. And that way it'll help us stop the spread of the flu virus. What we really, really need this year is a very mild flu season. And we can accomplish that if everybody goes out and gets the flu shot.
Yeah, so important. I want to continue discussing more on coronavirus. I want to sort of understand the movement of this virus, because right now, even though the cases are on a decline in the nation, and the death rates are somewhat, they're trying to balance it, they're trying to, deal with it. The areas such as Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, and areas around it is surging in cases. Can you explain what kind of pattern we are seeing? Why is it that we see a couple of states first get infected and then it goes to another region? Now we're looking at a third region. Why is that happening?
It's like a wildfire, right? And like these horrible wildfires we're seeing out in California and other parts of the country. Right. If there are a lot of trees in an area and it's been really dry, it's more likely to catch fire in those areas. And so I think what's happening is as people travel and they connect with other healthy people, infected people as they connect with congregate together with COVID patients, this virus is spreading. And what we know from the Princess Cruise Line study that came out a few months back was that maybe up to 80% of individuals may not show any symptoms. So up to 80% of people with COVID infection may not have any symptoms. And that's why I think it's important for you to go test if you have symptoms, and you should certainly self-quarantine. But I think it makes sense to also test the people that are not having symptoms, because that'll also help us stop the spread of the virus.
Do you believe that we have enough testing in this nation? There has been a lot of reports recently where health experts have pushed for more testing, especially in the Midwest where the cases are surging. What's your comment on that?
I believe it depends on where you are. Like here in New Jersey, I think we're doing a great job of testing folks, and we are. I believe at the last I checked, much less than 10% of the people that we're testing are coming back with a positive result. So I think in New Jersey it's somewhere between 2 and 3% right now.
Oh, wow.
Which is not bad. But when that infection rate is higher than 10%, like in some southern states where they're testing and they're getting back 20% positivity rate on those, that means that these guys are not testing enough. I think it makes sense to do targeted testing. Yeah, sure. But I think also we need a larger rollout of testing in areas where we know the virus is spreading, like in a number of those states that you mentioned.
As we all know, this month marked the 19th anniversary of the very tragic September 11 terrorist attacks. From New York City to Washington, D.C. to Pennsylvania, nearly 3,000 people were killed when hijackers took control of 4 commercial airplanes, crashing them into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field in Shanksville. The solemn 19th anniversary remembers all who lost their life to the 9/11 attacks, with families of the deceased and officials and leaders paying tribute. This 9/11 memorial and tribute across the nation last week saw relatives of the ones who lost their life come together wearing masks and standing 6 feet apart as they paid their respects. Such a 9/11 memorial service was held by the Edison Township at the Papaianni Park 9/11 Memorial Fountain in New Jersey and was attended by local officials, police, fire honor guards, along with the mayor and council. Here are some highlights from the tribute event.
Dear Lord, in many ways, we are still grieving the loss of life that happened 19 years ago when the free world was rocked by an attack that took so many lives away. But Lord, today we ask that you keep alive those memories of those who are lost, their bravery, their sacrifice, and that you give us all a heart to do what they did that day, because we know that there is no greater love than to lay one's life down for his friends. So we ask that you keep that in our minds, in our hearts, and in our souls today. Amen.
It is important that we remember this date because, as absurd as it is, those terrorists actually thought they would break the United States of America. They made us stronger. And don't only remember 9/11, remember 9/12, 9/13, 9/14, when this country was never more united. Never more focused on what was right about the United States of America. And now more than ever, we have to remember that. And it is an honor to be here today. But I want you, Captain Enright, Enfield brought to attention something that I wanted to bring to attention. When I think of 9/11, I think of the pictures of the towers falling and the big dust ball and our firefighters and our police and our emergency personnel running towards that, knowing that their lives were at risk. So I want every one of you to do me a favor. Please stand and join with me in thanking our emergency management, our police, our fire, for what they did on that day and what they do every day to keep us safe. God bless you all and God bless America.
When the towers fell and we found out what happened, since that day, I actually made a commitment and I said that I would go back to New York every 9/11, which I will go to right after this, so that I can remember and see the resilience. And every year since, I saw the Freedom Tower getting bigger and bigger to what it is today. It showed me that no one at any point will ever break the United States. We will always be a moving force in the world. Our values are here to stay. We will always stand by each other.
I remember where I was. I'm sure everyone here remembers where they were, what they were doing, and the anxiety and the frustrations and the nervousness and being scared of what is going on and the unknown. Well, here we are 19 years later. We all know what happened. We all reacted. And we've made a lot of changes in our own personal lives, in the country, our first responders, and everything that we do today has a different effect now than it did 19 years ago. And anyone can come here as they walk around this beautiful park, as they sit here and they can reflect, and they can look at this monument that's here for perpetuity. That's going to be here way longer than all of us sitting here. For future generations to always remember. Always remember. And as the senator said, us as a country being united is the most important thing today. I hate to say, unfortunately, what the environment today is not what this country is really about.
It's time for the short break on Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. Come right back to us. And welcome again. This is Vision of Asia, the South Asian news segment, and I am Aditi Lamba. Nationwide demonstrations and protests for racial justice, dignity, and equality continue to empower the Black Lives Matter movement since the death of George Floyd in Minnesota. The organization is a decentralized political and social movement which advocates for non-violent civil disobedience in protest against incidents of police brutality and racially motivated violence against Black people and other minorities. Mobilizing communities from grassroots level and up, the Black Lives Matter movement has gotten much attention nationally for advocating defunding the police and investing directly into communities in need and legislature which promotes Black liberation, demanding on policing, education, environment, government, housing, and incarceration. Discussing much about the current happenings and the programs of Black Lives Matter, we sat down with leaders of its Greater New York chapter, Hawk Newsome and Chivona Newsome. Here is a segment of our conversation on systemic racism and oppression. Joining us today is Hawk Newsome and Chivona Newsome. Thank you so much for being with us on ITV Gold.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I have you here to discuss many important topics, but just beginning this information and this conversation, for people that may not know about Black Lives Matter movement, for people that may not understand what's happening right now, could you just explain to us what the movement is, and what is its driving force, and why does it continue to empower Black voices?
Well, our organization is about the full liberation of Black people. Our motto is of the Black Panther Party, and it's so much more than police brutality, even though that is at the forefront because Black men and women are being brutalized and being murdered at the hands of law enforcement around the world. But we believe in feeding our community, and community empowerment, filling up refrigerators, helping our community find jobs, and a whole host of other things for true Black liberation, because it's going to take a variety of ways to achieve that. So we work together with a coalition, and we just keep doing the work. I'm sure Hawk has some more to add.
It's hard to expound upon what you've stated, but if I may insert this. Civil rights in America, it may be, and it may have always been, Black people at the forefront, pushing it. But what South Asian Americans might understand is, if Black people didn't fight to sit at the front of the bus, then they wouldn't be able to sit at the front of the bus. If Black people didn't fight for the rights to higher education, the rights to be educated in all schools, or the right to vote, then you wouldn't either, And so a lot of people are like, why are Black people complaining? Yes, we're fighting for Black liberation. But when we win battles for every person who comes to America that is not the dominant race, which is white people.
Yeah, and it's very obvious, we owe it, the civil rights movement, we owe it to the Black American population that went ahead, fought for the rights, march everywhere. I want to kind of go into what is happening in the nation right now because there's so much unrest, everybody's really upset, and a lot needs to be changed. So let's continue to talk about Jacob Blake. Very sad case. Since you guys are on the forefront, I'd like for you to discuss with me, both of you, what exactly happened, what is happening right now, and the tension just seems to escalate almost every day. I'd like to know, why is that happening?
You have to think about the history of policing in this country. It was started as a slave patrol. So that's how it came about. They would take people who look like me and Hawk and return us as property to their rightful owner. And nothing's changed from that. When law enforcement sees people like me, sees Black people, they view them as a threat. They have no regard for our lives. They don't care about it. And that's what happened with Jacob Blake when he was in the car with his children. He was shot multiple times and is currently paralyzed. And the sad part about it, this man, he lost his ability to walk, and they handcuffed him to a hospital bed. And you're seeing this repeatedly, as you've seen a young man down in Atlanta being pulled out of the back of an Uber. Hawk and I were hit with batons this weekend here in New York. We are recovering from that, but the fight goes on. This is a long history of abuse in this country, about 400 years of oppression. Yes, people have taken to the street. The unfortunate murder of George Floyd pulled a lot of people off of their couches and made America and the world pay attention. But this is nothing new. As Will Smith said, it just simply wasn't filmed.
To leave the roadway and utilize the available sidewalks. If you do so voluntarily, no charges will be placed against you. If you remain in the roadway and refuse to utilize the sidewalks, you will be placed under arrest and charged with disorderly conduct. This is the new. Since you have refused to leave the roadway, you will be placed under arrest on the charge of disorderly conduct. If you do not cooperate and accompany the arresting officer to the prisoner transport vehicle, or if you resist arrest, you may be charged with additional. you have refused to leave the roadway, you will be placed under arrest on the charge of disorderly conduct. If you do not cooperate and accompany the arresting officer to the police transport vehicle,
Calm down. Relax. We're moving. Relax. We all get back. Why are you hitting him?
officer to the prisoner transport vehicle.
Get off. Wait, no, I'm not.
We are seeing a minute portion of the atrocities that are happening in this America, in America, police violence against people. We're seeing a very small percentage of the cases just on TV. Just imagine what you don't see, right? Just imagine what white people might not see because, you know, the news might not pick it up or they don't have people in their communities pulling out phones and uploading them. But police brutality is a pandemic. It's not just happening to us, it's happening to everyone, right? So once again, we're out here fighting. We're fighting for the liberation of Black people, but it benefits everyone. And there's a lot of places where people can go and get data. There's websites like Campaign Zero. There's places that, like, you go to Black Lives Matter Greater New York.com. There's places where you can go and really understand what's happening with racism and police brutality in America. Just as simple as somebody could order food on their cell phone or look for directions, you can figure out why we're fighting and have an understanding instead of just making up an opinion.
You know, this brings me to a really somewhat of an intense question, but I think it'll be really smart for me to ask you that. We have heard of many unarmed Black lives being taken even since George Floyd. We have heard of those lives being taken even before him. If somebody was watching on ITV Gold right now, can you explain to us what it means to be Black in this country? And when you are talking about Black liberation, what does that truly really mean? Because I think it's very important for people to understand what is actually happening here with the community. So what does it mean to be Black right now?
Well, our Blackness is a source of pride. And I give credit to every Black person across the world who manages to have pride in their Blackness. Because in our schools, they tell us that we're second-class citizens. American schools teach history after slavery. They don't talk about Africans as kings and queens. They don't talk about Africa and algebra, right? They don't talk about Africa and architecture, the pyramids, right? They don't talk about the great civilizations of Egypt. They don't talk about astronomy. They don't talk about the great achievements of Black people. Now, what you do see is white beauty. Right? Blonde hair, blue eyes, lighter complexion. What you see is white talent and representation in legal fields. And it's sad because it not only makes Black people, but it makes everybody who's not white want to aspire to be white. Because that's their ideal of success, right? And what we're trying to do is dismantle that narrative. People should be proud of who they are. And they should have a respect and a love for humanity. And if they see that our humanity is being attacked, then they should be willing to fight back.
And this wraps up our show for the night. Remember to send us your suggestions and get your voices and organizations on our show. Email us on events@itvgold.com or follow us on Facebook @itvgold. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for free access to many of our popular shows. Thank you for joining us tonight from Queens, New York. This is Vision of Asia, and I am Aditi Lamba. Take care and be well.